Okay, we are recording.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Would you like me to begin doing my questions now?
Absolutely.
Sounds good. So the first question is, what are some of the psychological effects that wrongful convictions can have on an individual and their families?
That's a great question. What makes it a great question is that you included and their family. Because that's something that we're actually going to have an entire presentation on coming up in a couple of weeks about the impact of wrongful convictions on people's families. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So for the offenders, psychologically, clearly there's depression, angry because you're stuck in prison and you know that you didn't commit this crime. As you look into these things, it becomes scary how easy it is for somebody to end up convicted of something they didn't do and sent to prison. Even when they get out, the nightmare doesn't stop. They all suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. You can't spend years locked up in prison and not come out of that with some kind of PTSD. So there's that. You're somebody's brother, you're somebody's son, you're somebody's partner. While you've been locked up for 30 years, they've been without you for 30 years. Takes a tremendous toll on them. We had a presentation last year, early 2020, from a group of individuals that are referred to as the East Cleveland Three. They were three men falsely convicted of murder, and they all lived in the same area in East Cleveland. And one of them talked about how being dragged out of a house by the police, shoved on the ground to get handcuffed, and his mother is standing across the street watching all this. Imagine watching your child being handled that way. There's tremendous impact on the family. The offender has to put their lives back together in some way, shape, or form when they get out of prison. That's not always easy. You've been locked away 15, 20, 30 years. Think about, so you're what, 17, 18, something like that?
Yep, 17.
17, all right. So just think about, in your young life, how technology has changed.
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably don't even remember life without your smartphone.
Right? I was pretty little, but yeah.
Okay, right, all right, right. Think about things like streaming, Netflix, like that, right? Making videos on TikTok, think about social media, right? There's one exoneree who tells a funny, he was locked up for 20 years, okay? And he got out. It's probably been about 6 years now that he got out. So he talks about, so that his family rented like this big party bus, because all his friends wanted to come and watch him get released from prison. So they're on this van, this bus, on the way back home. And so, excuse me, somebody calls, one of your people on their phone, on their cell phone, to talk to him. Here, Dean, so-and-so's on the phone, and he looks at the cell phone, like, and he puts it to his ear, like a phone. Like, what do I do with this? Like a regular phone. He those things before, right? So sometimes if you've been locked away for a long time, think about how the world has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Locked away long enough, you don't have access to internet while you're in prison, things like that. So it can be a huge effect. We once had this, he wasn't convicted, but we once had a guest speaker who had spent 50 years in prison, and he got out. Talks about being dropped off at the bus station in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Terrified to walk across the street because there were so many cars that were different from when he went into prison. So there are a lot of psychological effects on the offenders as well as their families. Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay.
You're
Now,
welcome.
the next question is, what are the harmful effects of wrongful convictions on a society and country as a whole?
So, also, really good question. So, on top of everything else that I just talked about, first of all, it's expensive. Keeping somebody in prison costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
Your father could give you a much better figure than I could. But roughly speaking, okay, it's anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000 a year to keep somebody locked up in prison. Okay, verify that with him. Okay. So think about that money we've spent locking up somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes what people don't think about is while the wrong person is in prison, the real criminal is still out there committing crimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think my first email to you or your mother, excuse me, I recommended you watch the Central Park 5.
Mm-hmm. I actually was going to watch that this weekend. I have heard about the case.
So in that case, the real rapist, he raped women.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know.
5 kids are being processed through the system. So the harm to society in terms of the harm that we've done to the individual, okay, the amount of money that we spent on locking them up, and the big thing is the real offender is still out there harming people. So is this enough for me to stop recording, or you want to keep going?
I was just gonna do the whole thing so I could
Okay. All right.
like a little bit.
So what I'll do is I'll upload. It'll take a little bit. I will upload this into YouTube and send you a link, and then
sounds good. Thank you.
If you can play around with it, be my guest.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. The next question is, how big of an effect do organizations within the Innocence Network / movement have on the public's view of wrongful imprisonments?
So that's one of their main missions. So one of their missions is, of course, to try to free people who are wrongfully incarcerated. But the other thing is to spread public awareness. That's really the idea behind our undergrad campus chapters, is to help by doing programming on campus, help spread awareness of this, not just on campus, but in the community. But that's why they do different events throughout the year. The idea is, by spreading awareness, that while our system is a good system, it's not infallible. Mistakes happen. And so if you become aware of that, and the day comes where you are on a jury, maybe you won't be so easily persuaded You'll evaluate the evidence a little more critically and ask questions that you wouldn't otherwise have asked if you didn't know about wrongful convictions and how they happen. I don't know how you measure something like that, but that's the hope of the impact that they have beyond however many. I don't know. I forget the current count. I think on their website, and it'll tell you how many people, not just men, how many people they have freed from conviction.
Yeah, it's actually. Sorry, I have it in my paper. I want to say they've done around 500, I feel.
Oh, no. It's nowhere near like that. The Ohio, so there's, okay.
Oh,
So
I was doing
so there's a few different things. Okay.
Yeah, I was doing the.
So no, that's fine. You're fine.
Sorry.
So it's all terminology. So there's the Innocence Network.
Mm-hmm.
The Innocence Network is international, worldwide, all different innocence organizations. So that very well could be 500. Okay. Then there's the Innocence Project, United States, and that started in New York. There are innocence projects in different states. There are also different innocence organizations besides the Innocence Project. So depending upon what you look at, you get a different number. But I'm talking about what I'm involved with is the Ohio Innocence Project, and their number is either 20-something or 30-something people that they've been able to.
Yep. The national one, if you're curious, is 190. Sorry, I just found it in my paper. But
Yeah.
Okay. And the final question is, where do you think America would be today without the founding of the Innocence Project?
I heard one speaker recently at an event say that he would probably have died in prison if it hadn't been for the Innocence Project. You would have had a lot of people die in prison or never get out of prison for the rest of their lives if it hadn't been for the Innocence Project. So I think it's a huge thing.
All right. Well, thank you again. That is all the questions that I have for you.
Okay.
And
very good.
Sorry. I was wondering if you had any other things that you would like to add, or just any final comments.
I commend you for your interest.
Thank you.
That's what this needs, right? We need young people such as yourself to get involved and bring your energy and your enthusiasm to this thing. It's fantastic that when I got your mom's email that you were interested, I was very excited. That's really cool.
Thank you. Well, thank you
awesome.
again so much for helping me with this. And if I have any other questions, I will reach out to you. And
Okay, but remember, we had a deal.
Oh, yes.